I, Elli, who 35F, stood as my in-laws had arrived earlier that day for dinner, and as usual, I braced myself for the cold, passive-aggressive comments that would inevitably come. I tried to keep my distance, keeping busy with preparing everything for the evening. But no matter how hard I tried to avoid it, their presence in my life always made me feel like an outsider. This wasn't the way I imagined my marriage. I had fallen in love with Adam when we were young, naive, and full of dreams about our future together. We had spoken about our family, about children, about building a home filled with love and laughter. I had envisioned a world where we were partners in everything: life, love, and family. But life had other plans. It had been 3 years since we'd married, and our dream of having children had not yet come true. My heart ached each time I found myself in a room filled with other families, their children running around, full of life and joy. I couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy, an emptiness deep inside me. I knew Adam and I had tried, but I never would have expected that this silence, this void, would come to define our relationship. Adam was always supportive, never outright cruel, but it was his family that made things unbearable. They would make subtle remarks that dug at my soul. Comments about how it was time to have kids, or how Adam deserves to be a father. But the worst part was how they would look at me as if I was somehow the cause of our childless state. It started off slow, innocent enough. A casual comment here or there. But as the months wore on, the insults became more pointed. His mother, Janet, would smile sweetly at me, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Well, honey, it's not too late. You're still young, aren't you?" she'd say, making it seem like I was running out of time. Adam's sister, Claire, was the worst of them all. She always had a way of talking about children as if they were a trophy she'd earned. "Adam and I have been waiting. You know," she'd say with a sly smile. "The best thing you can do for him is give him a baby. Don't make him wait too long." It was always a game to them. A subtle form of ridicule masked with false kindness. And then, when Adam would leave the room, their voices would lower, becoming sharp, judgmental. "How is it, having to watch him want something you can't give him? Does it make you feel like less of a woman?" I could feel the weight of their words in my chest. Every time they spoke like that, it was as if they were twisting a knife inside of me. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this pain. I didn't want to feel inadequate every time I saw a pregnant woman or heard about a child's first steps. But what hurt even more was Adam's silence. He never said anything to defend me. He would just nod along, or sometimes he'd look at me with a sad smile, as if to say, "I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do." One night, as the months passed without any sign of a baby, I had enough. I had been to countless doctors, taken every test, and yet nothing was ever clear. Adam told me it would be okay, but I could see the pressure mounting on him too. The small talk from his family turned into more aggressive jabs. The turning point came during one of the many dinners at his mother's house. The family was gathered around the table, chattering about their latest family vacations and their children's achievements. I sat quietly, picking at my food, not participating in the conversation. It was the same story every time: their kids, their grandkids, their perfect lives. I felt the familiar burn of tears in my throat, but I forced them down, telling myself that I wouldn't let them see me break. That's when Claire spoke up. "I know it's been tough on you, Elli," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "But I'm sure Adam doesn't mind. I mean, you've always been there for him, right? I'm sure it's hard, though, being barren. I know how much Adam wants children." The words hit me like a slap in the face. My hands shook, and I felt the heat of shame creep up my neck. My face flushed with embarrassment. I looked over at Adam, hoping he would say something. But he just looked down at his plate, his jaw clenched tightly. I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. The hurt was too much. I excused myself from the table, rushing out of the room before anyone could see the pain on my face. I locked myself in the bathroom, tears streaming down my face. I was suffocating, drowning in a sea of guilt and frustration. Why couldn't they understand that I was doing everything I could? That I wanted this as much as they did? It wasn't my fault, and that night, as I cried myself to sleep, I made a decision. I wasn't going to take it anymore. I would find the truth. I would fight for myself, and I would fight for my marriage, even if it meant exposing everything. The days that followed that dinner were unbearable. The quiet tension between Adam and me grew with each passing moment. It was as if the air in our house had become thick with unsaid words and unspoken resentments. He continued to go about his daily routine as if nothing had changed, while I found myself spiraling deeper into my thoughts, trying to make sense of the betrayal I had just uncovered. The results were clear: Adam was infertile. He had known about it, and he had kept it from me. And all this time, I had been carrying the burden of our inability to conceive, convinced that I was the problem. It had all been a lie. I was the victim of a deception so deep that I could barely breathe when I thought about it, but there was no way I was going to confront him right away. No. I couldn't just let this go. I needed to take my time to plan my next move. And Adam's birthday was just around the corner. I could feel my pulse quicken at the thought of the party we were supposed to throw. It was supposed to be a joyous occasion, a celebration of him, of us. But I was no longer interested in pretending. Instead, I decided that I would make the party a stage for the truth to come out. It would be a moment of reckoning. A moment for Adam to face what he had done to me, to us. I wasn't going to let this lie go unnoticed. I was going to expose him, and I wasn't going to back down. So, I kept the test results hidden. I tucked them away in a drawer in the study, underneath a pile of other papers. No one would find them, not yet. The results would be my secret, my ammunition, until the moment was right. Until Adam thought everything was fine again, until he was comfortable in his little bubble of lies. The days leading up to the party were an emotional roller coaster. Every time Adam would come home from work, his bright smile would make me want to scream, but I swallowed my frustration, letting it burn quietly inside me. He had no idea what was coming. He had no idea how much he had destroyed in my heart. But I was prepared. I was strong. I threw myself into organizing the party. I picked out a venue, ordered the food, and made sure the decorations were just right. In the past, I would have enjoyed these little tasks. I loved making Adam feel special, showing him how much I appreciated him. But this time, it felt like I was preparing for a battle. A battle I knew I couldn't lose. The morning of his birthday came, and I woke up with a strange sense of calm. I had made up my mind. I knew exactly what I had to do. As I got ready, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I looked the same, but everything felt different. There was no turning back now. As Adam left for work that morning, I could feel the knot in my stomach tighten. He had no idea what was about to happen. I knew I couldn't let him walk into that party with his usual air of smug confidence. I couldn't let him pretend that everything was fine. He had to know that I knew the truth. He had to know the weight of the lies he had told me. I spent the day setting up the venue, making sure everything was perfect. I had already invited close family and friends, all of whom had been supportive of us through the years. They had no idea what was brewing beneath the surface, but tonight, they would all know. The truth would finally be revealed. And Adam wouldn't be able to run from it. By the time the evening rolled around, the party was in full swing. Adam arrived, his usual bright smile lighting up the room. He was so unaware, so carefree, and it made my insides churn with anger. He had no idea how much he had hurt me, how much I had suffered in silence. But tonight, everything would change. I made my way over to him, my heart pounding in my chest. I could see the excitement in his eyes, the anticipation of a night of celebration. And for a moment, I almost faltered. I almost let him off the hook. But then I remembered how many times I had suffered in silence, how many times I had watched him get away with his deceit, his manipulation. No more. With a deep breath, I grabbed his hand. I have something to say, Adam, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. He looked at me curiously, but I could see the hint of concern in his eyes as he followed me to the center of the room. The guests were all looking at us now, their eyes shifting between us, unsure of what was happening. I could feel the weight of their gaze on me, but I didn't care. This wasn't for them. This was for me. This was for the years of pain and confusion, for the lies that had been buried deep inside me. I need to tell everyone something, I said, my voice firm. Adam and I have been trying to have a child for years now. We've gone through countless tests and procedures. And throughout this whole journey, I've been made to believe that I was the problem. That it was my body, my fertility, that was keeping us from having a family. I paused for a moment, allowing my words to sink in. I could see the confused looks on some of the guests' faces. But this was just the beginning. It wasn't time to stop yet. Tonight, I'm revealing the truth. The truth that I've known for far too long. The truth that Adam has kept from me. The truth that Adam has been hiding from all of us. I took a deep breath and pulled the test results from my purse. I held them up for everyone to see. These are the test results that Adam has been hiding from me. The results that prove it wasn't me all along. It wasn't my infertility. It was Adam's. The room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop as the weight of my words settled over everyone. Adam's face turned pale, and for a moment, he didn't move. He didn't speak. His eyes were wide with shock, but there was nothing he could say to deny the truth. I turned to him, my voice trembling with anger and betrayal. How could you do this, Adam? How could you let me suffer all these years, carrying the guilt of something that wasn't even my fault? How could you let your family think it was me, when all along, it was you? For the first time in years, I saw Adam's face crumble. The facade he had so carefully built around him began to crack. The perfect husband, the perfect son-in-law, none of it mattered now. His lies had been exposed for all to see. And in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't just about the fertility issues. This was about the years of manipulation, the years of deceit. This was about Adam's inability to ever take responsibility for his actions, to ever truly see me for who I was. The truth was out, and there was no going back. The room was thick with silence. Every pair of eyes was on Adam and me, each one watching, waiting for him to speak, to explain. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, the weight of the moment pressing down on my chest. I had exposed the truth, and now there was no turning back. The only thing left was the fallout. Adam stood frozen, his face pale, his lips trembling. His gaze shifted between me and the group of guests, his expression unreadable at first. It was as if his mind was racing, trying to catch up with the reality of the situation. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. It was like he was choking on his lies, unable to process the fact that everything he had kept hidden for so long was now out in the open. Then, as if waking from a stupor, Adam looked at his parents. His mother, who had always been so supportive of him, her eyes wide with disbelief, her hand instinctively reaching for her chest as if she'd been punched. His father's face was a picture of shame. His head hanging low as if the weight of the truth was too much for him to bear. This isn't what you think, Adam finally stammered, his voice cracking as he struggled to regain control of the situation. But I knew it was too late. The words had already been spoken, the damage had already been done. He had no defense, no way to spin this in his favor. You're right, I said coldly, cutting him off. It's not what I think. It's worse. It's the truth, Adam. And you can't run from it anymore. You can't lie your way out of this. I could see the strain in his face, the panic building as the truth settled around him like a suffocating fog. But what struck me the most was how he refused to look at me. His gaze was locked on his parents, pleading for help, for some sort of redemption. It was as if he couldn't bear the thought of facing me, the woman he had betrayed so deeply. Adam's father, unable to look his son in the eye, spoke first. This is ridiculous, he muttered, his voice low and defensive. There's been a mistake. A misunderstanding. Adam's always been a good son. Save it, Dad, I interrupted, my voice growing louder now. Save it. You've spent your life covering for him, protecting him from the consequences of his actions. Well, guess what? The truth doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care how many times you've swept things under the rug. It's out. It's here. Tears welled in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I refused to show any more weakness in front of them. They had already taken so much from me, and I wasn't going to let them see me break now. His mother's face had turned crimson with embarrassment, her lips trembling as she wiped away a tear. Why, Adam? She asked, her voice breaking with hurt. Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell her? Adam's silence spoke volumes. It was as if he had no answers to give. He stood there, in the middle of the room, like a man caught in a web of his own making, unable to extricate himself. The guests around us began to murmur, whispering in disbelief, unsure of what to do. Some looked uncomfortable, others stared in pity, but no one spoke. They were all too shocked by what had just unfolded. But as the silence continued to stretch, something inside me snapped. The hurt, the betrayal, the years of suffering in silence, it all came crashing down on me at once. You made me believe that I was the problem. I shouted, my voice trembling with emotion. You let me carry that weight, Adam. For years, I blamed myself, thinking I wasn't enough. I pushed myself to the limit, doing everything I could to try and fix something that wasn't even my fault. My voice broke, and I had to choke back the tears that were threatening to spill over. You didn't even have the decency to tell me the truth. Adam's eyes finally met mine, and I saw the regret in them. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to undo the years of pain he had caused me. It wasn't enough to make up for the countless nights I spent crying myself to sleep, wondering what was wrong with me. It wasn't enough to fix the trust he had shattered. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice hoarse. But I could see the tears welling in his eyes now too. I never meant for this to happen. I didn't want you to suffer. I didn't know how to tell you. The words felt empty. Apologies meant nothing when they came too late. When they were used as a last-ditch attempt to salvage something that had already been broken beyond repair. I don't want your apology, I said, my voice steady, my hands trembling with the weight of everything I had just said. I want you to face the truth. I want you to finally own up to the lies you've told, to the pain you've caused. You don't get to play the victim here, Adam. Not anymore. I turned to the guests, who were all watching us with wide eyes. Some in shock, others in disbelief. This is what he's done to me, I continued, my voice now more composed, more determined. He's kept me in the dark, made me believe that I was the one who couldn't have children, when all along, it was him. And he's spent all this time, all these years, hiding it from me. The room was silent for a moment, but the tension was palpable. I could hear the murmurs from the guests, some of them whispering their disbelief, others offering sympathetic glances. But one thing was clear, Adam had lost all control of the situation. His carefully crafted image of the perfect husband, the perfect son-in-law, had been shattered in an instant. But it wasn't just Adam who was affected. As I turned my gaze to his parents, I could see the weight of their own guilt pressing down on them. They had known about his infertility. They had known about the lies, and yet they had stayed silent, complicit in the deception. It wasn't just Adam who had betrayed me, it was all of them. I stood tall, my gaze unwavering as I looked at Adam's parents. You knew, I said quietly, but with venom in my voice. You knew, and you said nothing. You let me suffer, all because you were too afraid to confront the truth. Well, now we're all facing it. Adam's mother broke down in tears, her sobs racking her body as she turned away from me. His father stood there, speechless, unable to defend himself. But none of it mattered now. The damage had been done. And for once, I felt like I had reclaimed some semblance of power, some sense of control over my life. You don't get to hide behind your lies anymore, Adam, I said, my voice cold and final. And you don't get to use me as your scapegoat. This marriage is over. The house was eerily quiet. The chaos of the birthday party had dissipated, leaving only the lingering tension in the air. Adam sat in the living room, his hands gripping the armrests of the chair as if they were the only thing holding him together. His eyes were bloodshot, his face pale, and yet he didn't move when I stood up to leave. I could feel the weight of the moment, the finality of it. There was no turning back from this. It was over. I gathered my things slowly, methodically. The bag that I had placed on the counter earlier now felt heavy in my hands, as if every item inside it carried the burden of my decision. I could hear Adam's voice calling out to me from behind, but it didn't reach me. His words were drowned out by the pounding of my heart, the sound of my own footsteps as I moved towards the door. Elli, he called again, more urgently this time. Elli, please, we need to talk. We can fix this. I didn't mean for things to get this way. Please, just give me a chance. I paused at the door, my hand resting on the knob. I wanted to turn around. I wanted to yell at him, to ask him how he could have done this to me, to let him feel the hurt I had carried all these years. But there was no point. There were no more words left to say. I don't want to talk, Adam, I said, my voice steady but filled with an icy resolve. You've had your chance. And you've blown it. There's nothing left to fix. His silence followed me out of the house. The sound of the door clicking shut behind me echoing in my ears. It was the final sound, the final affirmation that there was no going back. No reconciliation, no apology that could undo the years of betrayal. I didn't drive aimlessly, as I thought I might. I knew exactly where I was going. To the one place I knew I could be safe, away from the lies, away from Adam and his family. The place that had always been a source of comfort for me, the home of my parents-in-law. But as I arrived at their doorstep, something felt off. The house, once so warm and welcoming, now felt like a gilded cage. It felt as though every step I took inside the house was another step towards my own defeat. But I needed them. I needed someone to understand, even if it was just for a moment. Adam's parents, Rita and David, were sitting in the living room when I entered, their faces drawn with concern. They had heard the commotion, felt the tension building, and now they seemed to be waiting for me to explain myself. To beg for forgiveness, perhaps. I wasn't sure what they expected, but I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me broken. Elli, Rita said softly, her voice gentle but insistent. We're so sorry about what happened today. We never wanted things to go this far. You know we love you, right? I crossed my arms over my chest, trying to contain the storm inside me. Love me? I scoffed. You love me so much that you let your son lie to me for years? You love me so much that you watched me struggle, blaming myself for something I had no control over, while all along you knew the truth? Rita's eyes welled with tears, and she shook her head in disbelief. It wasn't like that, Elli. We were just trying to protect him. We didn't want you to be hurt. We thought it was better if you didn't know. Better? I repeated, my voice rising with anger. Better for who, Rita? For you? For Adam? I wasn't the one you were protecting. You were protecting yourselves. Protecting your perfect image, your perfect family, while I was the one being destroyed in the process. David, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. We understand you're upset, Elli. But please, don't leave like this. This is not the way to handle this. You've been through a lot, but we want to help you. We want to fix this. Fix this? I laughed bitterly. You can't fix this. Not anymore. You can't take back the years of lies. You can't take back the betrayal. You don't get to fix it, David. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I don't need your help anymore. I don't need any of you. I came here because I thought I could find some comfort, some understanding. But all I've found is more manipulation. More lies. I'm done. Rita reached out to me, her hand trembling as if she were afraid I might vanish the moment she touched me. Elli, please. We know we've hurt you. But you're family. You're part of this family, and we can fix this. Adam will make it right. We'll all work together, and things can go back to how they were. Don't you dare say that, I snapped, pushing her hand away. Don't you dare tell me that things can go back to how they were, because they can't. I'm done being the good little wife, the good little daughter-in-law who sits by and lets her husband and his family walk all over her. I'm done. With that, I turned and walked out of the house. No more apologies, no more explanations. No more begging for forgiveness. I wasn't going to be the one to repair this. Not anymore. The next few days were a whirlwind. My emotions were still raw, and the shock of everything that had happened felt like a heavy weight on my chest. I stayed with my sister for a few days, trying to process everything, trying to figure out what my next steps would be. But the calls from Adam's family didn't stop. They kept calling, kept texting, trying to convince me to come back, trying to convince me that Adam was sorry and that everything could be fixed. They promised that he would change, that he would make things right. They begged me to give him another chance, to let him prove himself. But I knew better. I had seen the truth. I had seen the man Adam really was, and there was no going back from that. It wasn't just Adam who had betrayed me, it was his entire family. They had all known the truth, and yet they had kept it hidden from me for years. They had allowed me to suffer in silence, all while pretending to care about me. They weren't sorry for what they had done to me, they were sorry because their perfect little world had crumbled. And they wanted to fix it. I wasn't going to let them. I cut off all contact with Adam's family. I refused to pick up their calls, to respond to their messages. I didn't need their apologies or their empty promises. I was done.